Jenny Dell here on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. We are one day away from the fireworks of the 4th of July, but the fireworks, they've been going on non-stop when it comes to the NBA free agency. It's been crazy. There's still so much more work that needs to be done. Checking out the top available free agents right now. Now, restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. He tops our list at CBSSports.com. You can check out that whole list online. If you take a look at number 3, you see Malik Beasley. Well, he is currently the subject of a federal gambling probe, so any deals with him currently are on pause. And restricted free agent Cam Thomas rounds out our top 6. Lucky enough to be joined by Ashley Nicole Moss now on the desk. We're going to talk about some of the best landing spots for these remaining free agents. You're busy away on that laptop. It has been nonstop for you, girl. I don't know how you're still standing right now, but let's start at number 1 with Kuminga. Where do you see him fitting in best?
Yeah, so Kuminga is going to be interesting, right? I think that more than likely he's sticking with the Golden State Warriors for a multitude of reasons. I think the biggest reason for me is that obviously the Warriors have a qualifying offer to Kuminga, making him a restricted free agent. They could still re-sign him. We all know how that works. But here's the thing. Kuminga wants to be in a situation where he's going to have a bigger role. That's been the contention between him and this organization, Steve Kerr specifically, is that he's never really found his footing. And as somebody who is a Knicks fan, I know once upon a time we had the same issue with Obi Toppin, and Obi wasn't really able to flourish into his own as a player until he got where? The Indiana Pacers. So it's going to really rely on Kuminga's desire for a larger role, consistent minutes, and a lucrative contract. Now, the Warriors, on the other hand, though, they need to weigh their potential asking price and fit within their current roster. So they have to weigh what Kuminga's going to want against what they're able to provide. And as we know, these aprons have drastically changed the way these teams are doing business. But it seems now on July 3rd, this could change, obviously, that what Kuminga is looking for, there's not a lot of teams who can pay him that. The Warriors are the only team that has the dibs on him right now. It's just a matter if they can come to an agreement with what his role is going to be. I will say this. The Golden State Warriors should start preparing for life after Draymond Green and Steph Curry. And Jonathan Kuminga may be the piece that they can start doing that with. They just have to find a middle ground between what he wants and what they can provide.
Still so young, too. He will be just 23 years old at the start of next season. Next up on our list, I want to ask about Josh Giddey, traded from the Thunder to the Bulls in June of 2024 for Alex Caruso. He had career highs in many categories last season. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
This one's hard because the Bulls are in the best position to give him what he wants money-wise, right? But when you talk about what Josh Giddey is looking for, obviously the paycheck, let's be very clear about that. But I think also there are teams out in the league that necessarily aren't going to be contenders. They may not even be playoff teams, but neither are the Chicago Bulls. But they are looking to kind of rebuild and go younger. And the team on my list for him, if it's not Chicago, the Washington Wizards. We see the moves that they have made so far. They're not making these catastrophic, life-changing, franchise-changing moves, but they are trying to get younger and trying to figure it out as they go. So if it's not Chicago for me, I think the Wizards would be a good spot for him.
That would be a nice landing spot for sure. Up next, we have Al Horford, an unrestricted free agent. The other two were restricted. Entering his 19th season, 39 years old.
Well, Jenny Dell, you know
I know. Well. So what happens with Horford?
Horford's interesting. I think the unfortunate reality of the situation is the Jason Tatum injury has kind of just thrown the Boston Celtics in complete disarray. This was a team that was in prime position to run it back. This devastating injury to their star has kind of forced this new ownership to really start looking at life, the next iteration of the Boston Celtics. And we already saw the movement with Porzingis. We already saw the movement with Drew Holiday. And Al Horford's an interesting piece. Veteran guy, phenomenal at his position. In Boston last season, averaged 9 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 42% shooting from the field, and almost 37% from the three. I think his shooting would be ideal for the Golden State Warriors front court with Butler and Green, and he's also a guy that's not going to cost you a lot of money. You could pay him the vet minimum, maybe a little bit above that. It's not going to put the Warriors over the edge. We already know the Lakers are probably out of this conversation after signing DeAndre Ayton. I think if it's not Boston, it's probably the Golden State Warriors. That would be the best fit for him.
Any concern with his age getting up there a little bit?
No, I mean, Al Horford's not a guy who's going to log a lot of minutes. He's not a starter. He's the guy that comes off the bench. He's the guy that kind of gets that movement with that second unit. But the best thing about Al Horford is, yes, he is a particular age, but he is so reliable that he is a guy you want in your locker room. And also, if we're going to be realistic, it could also come down to the fact that Al Horford just maybe retires. You mentioned his age. He's won a championship. He's had a lucrative career. Obviously, I believe he's going into the Hall of Fame. That's a big debate in the NBA world, whether or not he will or he won't. But we always forget when we talk about guys in this stage of their career, there's always a chance that they don't want to go elsewhere. They just will hang it up before that happens. But I think the Warriors are a good fit if he ultimately decides not to do that.
Yeah, 2024 NBA champ with the Boston Celtics. Had to throw that one out there. 5-time All-Star. So, yeah, he's done his part, that's for sure. What about a player like Quentin Grimes? So you look at his numbers last year, 21.9 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in 28 games with the Sixers. Dealing with multiple injuries, though, last season, where do you see him ending up?
I would have loved to bring him back to the Knicks. That would have been an ideal situation for me. I just don't see that's feasible because Quentin Grimes is looking to get paid. And obviously, as we know, the 76ers acquired him from the Dallas Mavericks via a trade. And his performance with the 76ers, especially because of how injured this team was, when you talk about Joel Embiid and Paul George and those guys, really put him in a different light. You put him kind of in the center and increased his scoring average. He has raised his profile. He's gotten more attractive to other teams. I think, again, when we talk about a landing spot, if it's not the 76ers, who more than likely will try to retain him, I think the Wizards are another team to look at. They are a team that's trying to build young, talented players or trying to bring in young, talented players to kind of revamp this just disastrous tenure of the Washington Wizards for I don't even know how many years. It feels like most of my existence. And he's 25 years old, so he fits that profile. But they're going to have to weigh his potential against their financial limitations, and that's where things get sticky. So again, if it's not the 76ers who can retain him and more than likely will, for me, the Washington Wizards would be a nice fit.
You're talking about the Wizards needing to get a little bit of help. Is there a team, before we move on, that you feel like that's still out there that needs a lot of work still at this point?
I mean, it depends. Like, are we talking teams that are trying to do something, or are we talking teams that just need to rebuild? Because the Brooklyn Nets are a disaster. And I just realized, I know Boney's probably yelling at me in the control room right now. Josh Giddey was to the Nets if he didn't go back to Chicago. So I'm sorry, Boney, don't yell at me. It's a lot to remember off the top of my head here. But I think the Nets are interesting. I think the Wizards, the Bulls, but these are all teams that, for lack of a better term, are in a black hole when it comes to their future. It's going to take them a very long time to be back in the conversation. I think these aprons and the lack of money going around the league has made it very difficult for a lot of these other teams that are in contention to do other things. The Timberwolves are a perfect example of that. I think they should have made a move, but they have financial limitations, especially since re-signing Naz Reid and Julius Randle, that have prevented them from making their team a next level better.
We're going to be talking about some of those teams in our next segment. You mentioned the Nets there. That brings us to Cam Thomas. Career highs in points per game, rebounds, assists. Played 25 games there for the Nets before he lost the remainder of the season with that left hamstring strain. What happens with a guy like Cam?
Cam Thomas is more than likely coming back to Brooklyn. I mean, he has made it clear he wants to return to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's really the only team that has the cap space to afford him. He's probably looking for anywhere between $80 to $100 million over 4 years. And like I said, the Nets have ample cap space and are likely to offer Cam Thomas a competitive deal. Now, they obviously, I believe, view him as a cornerstone player and are motivated to retain him. And I just don't see a market where Cam Thomas is going to get, A, the playing time that he gets in Brooklyn, B, kind of the centerpiece option that he gets in Brooklyn, and more importantly, the money that he gets in Brooklyn, because everyone's broke. Nobody has any cash to spend, and if they do, they are trying to retain it and maintain themselves under the second apron. So Brooklyn's in a very nice situation. Like I started off by saying, they're essentially bidding against themselves for Cam Thomas. I would be very surprised if he landed anywhere else but Brooklyn.
Brooklyn must be happy about that. Listen, you gotta get some goodness over there, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm fine.
Of course you are. We got more coming with Ashley Nicole Moss, but you can also check her out on Triple Threat. Been an incredibly busy off season so far, even though I feel like championship game was just like a couple.
It's been a lot, Jenny.
Weeks ago. There's so much that has already changed. And what do we do here in sports? Well, we already think about next year. 10 teams who can win the NBA title next season. Number 1, you see the Thunder taking over that top spot, followed by the rest. And we are ready to break down this list with our Ashley Nicole Moss because, you know, it's just something fun that we do. We talk about these projections, and then we can go back at the end of the year and see how we did. And I feel like
I did call OKC right this season.
You did.
Just saying.
So we're going to start from 10 and work our way down, okay? And we saw the list there, who's going to be number 1, and I would imagine you still agree that the Thunder are going to take that top spot. But let's start with the Milwaukee Bucks at number 10, okay? They waived their injured Damian Lillard. That was like a whole conversation, stretching his salary over the season to help clear space for Miles Turner. That was a big move that just went down. Talk to me a little bit about the Bucks and what you expect from them this year.
So Lakers fans are going to be mad because they're not on my list and these guys are, but I'm putting them on my list strictly because of Giannis, the strength of him, and also in really weak Eastern Conference. The Lakers have a bigger task going through the West. It's going to be a different conversation to get out of that. We'll hit that when we get there. But here's the thing. I'm strictly putting this on the strength of that guy right there, number 34. And that's really the only explanation that I have if anybody can take this team. And Miles Turner is a lot better than people are kind of, been saying these past few days since he's become a Milwaukee Buck. He's coming off an exceptional season. I don't think he is a needle mover. I don't think he's going to be this drastic difference maker, but he is a talent that Giannis will appreciate if Giannis ultimately ends up staying in Milwaukee. That could change. It could change today, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. I don't know. But on June 3rd, 2025, give me the Milwaukee Bucks at 10. And this is, again, strictly because I have a lot of respect and faith in the big man, Giannis.
I love you so much for thinking that it's June 3rd.
Oh, sorry, July 3rd. It's been a long time.
The girl needs a break. The girl needs a break. I remember when we were talking about the Bucks news coming out. You were like, find someone that loves you, like the Bucks love Giannis.
For sure.
Will just do anything to appease you and make you happy. We'll see what happens over there. We're going to work our way now down to number 9. We have the Orlando Magic. They lost in the first round against the Celtics last season. They did make some moves this offseason. Your take?
I like the moves that they made. I think Desmond Bane was a great acquisition for them. It's going to help them with their offense. It's going to help them from a scoring standpoint, both of which they really struggled with last season. I do still think, though, this is a very young team, and I know that narrative has been squashed by the Oklahoma City Thunder after they won the championship this year, but this Magic team is not that OKC team, and I think that they are a couple of seasons away from really being in the conversation. But I think this is going to obviously be a playoff team. I think, again, with how broken the Eastern Conference is, this is a prime position for a lot of these teams that get lost in the mix to really make some noise as an actual playoff contender. And I think the Orlando Magic were plagued by injury, and that's really what helped. That's really what suffered them last season, or made them suffer last season. The injuries to Paolo and then Franz Wagner. I think health permitted, and the addition of Desmond Bane, this is a team to definitely look out for in the Eastern Conference.
We do have an LA team on our list. You mentioned off the top, it is not the Lakers. We have the Clippers coming in at number 8. James Harden signed a 2-year, $81.5 million deal with the Clippers after declining that $36.4 million player option. Brooks Lopez agreed to a 2-year deal over there. Well, they haven't won a playoff series since reaching the Western Conference Finals in 2021. Again, we're taking a look at teams that we think could make it to win the title next year. Yeah. So what do you like about them?
I think the Clippers, honestly, I was very surprised by what they did this season, because the wild card is to Kawhi Leonard and his health and his availability. And I can't tell you, just as a basketball fan, how exciting and just heartwarming it was to see Kawhi playing the way he was playing in the postseason, towards the end of the regular season, and just really watching a version of Kawhi Leonard that we've missed. And it's due to just the up and down with his injuries, the rehabilitation. I think, health permitted, this Clippers team is a lot better than a lot of people thought earlier this season. Obviously, James Harden is James Harden. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. But when he shows up, man, is he special. And then again, when you get a healthy Kawhi Leonard, it changes the conversation of the Los Angeles Clippers. It changes the conversation what this team can do, and it changes their ceiling. That is the biggest thing. It's not lack of talent. I do think that this Clippers team is a lot more, it's sneaky talented. It's like on paper, you're kind of like, this is not a good team. They're not gonna, you know, too much stock on two guys who are unreliable. And then you saw them this postseason and then this regular season, and you said, oh, okay, like this actually looks better in real life than it does on paper. But it's all about Kawhi and how healthy he can stay. But I'm going to give them the respect of putting them at number 8 because of what I saw this postseason.
The respect is there. Number 7, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They re-signed Naz Reid. We talked about that off the top. Julius Randle for that combined $225 million contract. Added Rudy Gobert, whose extension kings in this season. And the T-Wolves have $334.5 million committed to their bigs, and that's even after trading Towns away. So talk to me a little bit about Minnesota.
So Minnesota's tricky for me because they didn't get better. They stayed the same, which is not the worst thing, especially when you talk about a team that was in the playoffs this season.
But you always want to try to get better.
But you always want to try to get better, and you definitely want to try to get better in the Western Conference. And my concern about the Minnesota Timberwolves is, look, Anthony Edwards, phenomenal. Every season he gets experience under his belt is better for Anthony Edwards' development as a player and as the leader of this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And I think the chemistry, another year under their belt, of the chemistry of Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, and just all the new acquisitions and all the new pieces that they had via that trade and what they did in that prior offseason is all beneficial. But my issue is that I feel like it's going to be more of the same. And the same isn't necessarily bad because, as we saw, this was a playoff team. And the year before that, although they had Karl Anthony Towns, this was a team that went to the Western Conference Finals. So it's hard for me to say it's going to get worse, but it's also not going to get better, which is why I kind of put them at the middle of the road. I think they're one of the better teams in the West, but it's hard for me to put a lot of stock in a team when they're going to be going against guys like the Thunder, the Houston Rockets, who look filthy, even the Dallas Mavericks. But I'm putting them at number 7 on the strength of Anthony Edwards and what we saw this team do this particular season, and even although they didn't come out victorious in the postseason.
Okay, so not necessarily better, the same, which could be.
That's why they're in the middle of the road. They're not the bottom, they're not at the top, they're in the middle.
They're 7 in the middle. At number 6, we have the Hawks. Now, they spent the past 2 summers trying to kind of create a roster around Trae Young. This offseason made a big trade for Kristaps Porzingis over there, but you look at what they've done in the past. They finished as an 8 seed in the East last season. Why do you like them this year?
In the Eastern Conference, this is, in my opinion, the 3rd best team in that conference after the Cavs and after my New York Knicks. And when you talk about what the Atlanta Hawks have been able to do, they've been really struggling to kind of find the right team for Trae Young. It's been a lot of a revolving door, if you will. There's been a lot of turmoil, right? It was the DeJounte Murray situation that didn't work, and they got to trade DeJounte, but there wasn't a trade market for Trae, and it was just trying to figure out the pieces that can work with him. And you bring in Alexander Walker, who's a versatile player who contribute on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. Luke Kennard, you see him there at the bottom, signed a 1-year deal. He's a reliable scorer and a shooter to add to their backcourt. You obviously have Kristaps Porzingis, who can help stretch the floor when he's healthy. You know what he can do. Former Boston Celtic, also former New York Knick. He's been around. But with these additions, I feel like the Hawks have really filled multiple roster spots, and it added a lot of two-way players, giving them more flexibility, more depth. And I said this yesterday, and I will say it again. This is the best team that Trae Young has had his entire tenure as a Atlanta Hawk. And if he can't get it done with this team, he's the problem, not everybody else.
No pressure there. I do want to ask about a player you just said gets around quite a bit.
Yeah.
Porzingis. He has missed 65 games over the last 2 seasons. Is there any concern level with just his health?
For sure, and there's always been a concern level about this with Porzingis. This is not a new thing. It was an issue in Dallas. It was an issue in Washington. It was an issue in New York. It was an issue in Boston. And now, more than likely, it's going to be an issue in Atlanta. The better option here, though, or the silver lining, I should say, is that Atlanta does have a lot of pieces that maybe they don't feel his absence so strongly, but it's definitely a concern. This is a guy who deals with injury a lot and has in his career.
You always say your best ability is your availability.
Your availability is your best ability. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to look at number 5 now, right in the middle of the road. We got the Cavs. They lost in 5 games against the Pacers in the Eastern Conference semifinals last season. Some of the moves they made: Sam Merrill returning on a 4-year deal. They're adding Lonzo Ball via trade with the Bulls.
Yeah.
Larry Nance Jr. agreed to a deal over there. What are your thoughts on them?
I had to put the Cavs at number 1, although in my head and in my heart, it's the New York Knicks. But look, the Cavs were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They were plagued by injury at the worst possible time. That has nothing to do with talent and everything to do with luck or bad luck. As Phil Jackson said it best, winning a championship is part talent, part luck, and the luck has to do with health. But they're bringing everybody back. They're also adding talent in Lonzo Ball. I think that this team could have went further, should have went further than they did. I believe that a lot of people thought they were going to knock the Pacers out and make it all the way to the conference finals, possibly even the NBA finals. And it was a health issue, not a talent issue for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. So for me, that's why I have them at the middle. When you look at some of the other teams, you'll see why. But I definitely have them atop the Eastern Conference as the number 1 contender to make it all the way.
This next team at number 4, I feel like needs no introduction. We have your New York Knicks. The big news coming out yesterday, I believe that was, that they are going to be hiring Mike Brown as the next head coach. Ash, take it away.
Yeah, so we're still waiting for the official signing of Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson's going to be great because he's one of the best bench scorers in the NBA. You saw that when he was with Utah, won 6th Man of the Year in 2020, 2021. Averages 16 points, 3.7 assists. He's going to be great because you'll be able to bring him in those closing lineups and really help Brunson when it comes to late game playmaking. It's that scoring punch off the bench that the Knicks have been looking for. There's already a lot of gems on the bench. One, you need a coach who's going to go to him. That's why Mike Brown's there. But Jordan Clarkson's an additional piece that I think the Knicks have been looking for. For me, they were the 2nd team in the Eastern Conference as a true contender. And I'm going to say this, as devastating as the injuries to the Pacers and the Boston Celtics have been, it has changed the landscape of the Eastern Conference. And I believe this is the Knicks' best chance to not only go to the conference finals again, but to go to the NBA finals. It's just the name of the game. When things change, you got to take advantage of it. And I think that this is a great basketball team. They have a year under their belt. They have the experience of the postseason, of the conference finals from a chemistry standpoint. Remember, Karl-Anthony Towns was a late trade, and that kind of throws things a little bit off. You're learning chemistry in real time. But there is no reason why the Knicks should not be able to get it done this season. They have everything at their disposal. They have everything that they need. And if they can't, there's going to be some questions because, as you know, then the following year, the Celtics come back, the Pacers come back, and the East looks a lot different. They
are your top contender in the East over there at number 4. You have your New York Knicks. We're going to go to the West now for the top 3, and we're going to start with the Rockets. This is a team that before you just called filthy. Yeah. So just take it away.
I'm not even going to go too in-depth here. They've
Durant.
just absolutely killed this offseason, from the trade of Kevin Durant, the low-risk trade of Kevin Durant, only having to give up 2 pieces when it comes to players, and all the other acquisitions. I mean, they recently signed Clint Capella, who they didn't even need. It's just like, you know, if I got the cash to spend, why not make it rain? And that's exactly what they did. I think this Houston Rockets team is well coached. I'm a big fan of Ime Udoka. I think they were already talented. Western Conference, 2nd seed. You add Kevin Durant, you add just a lethal scoring machine that's going to help not only uplift the other guys he's playing with, but it's just going to give them that punch, that offensive punch that they struggled with. This was a team that did really well defensively, sometimes struggled offensively. Kevin Durant changes that for me.
Definitely changes things. You know that they're going to be just a winner this offseason by that deal alone. That's without question. At number 2, the Nuggets. Trading away Michael Porter Jr. to the Nets for Cameron Johnson. That was one of the headlines over there. What do you like about Denver? Do you think they're just going to continue to find success?
Everything. I actually saw a tweet yesterday from a big Denver Nuggets fan that I might agree with. It said that this iteration of the Denver Nuggets might be better than the Denver Nuggets team that won the championship in 2022. This is what we've been waiting for, the help that Jokic has been waiting for, the help that he deserves. Ever since they won the championship, you saw those pieces kind of dwindle. You brought Bruce Brown back. You finally figured out what to do with Michael Porter Jr., who made a lot of money. You didn't get a lot of return on your investment. You bring Cam Johnson, who's one of the best in-motion shooters, I believe, in the NBA. You give Jokic that help. You had the best basketball player in the world on your team. This is no knock to SGA. I know you're the reigning champ, but you know how much I love the big man in the Mile High City. And all you needed to do was give him some pieces, some slight pieces to make his job slightly easier. You didn't have to do much, and the Denver Nuggets did exactly what they needed to do. This might be the year that the Denver Nuggets make some real noise and bring it all the way back to where it started in the Western Conference Finals.
There's going to be one team that's in their way for sure when it comes to winning it all, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Your champs over there. We still have them as the #1 team projected to win next year. Why is that?
They're the reigning champs, and you got to give the respect to the reigning champs. I think that they've squashed the narrative that young teams can't win basketball games, that young teams can't win championships. And you have the league MVP, the finals MVP, now Supermax player in SGA. The key is going to be keeping these guys together, which I don't think they'll have an issue doing at all. For me, though, I just think that they now have a year of experience in the regular season being the top dog in the NBA, the top dog in the Western Conference, a postseason, some big battles against the Denver Nuggets and the Indiana Pacers, and now a championship under their belt. This is dangerous because once upon a time it was you don't know what you don't know. Well, guess what, everybody? Now they know. So
now you know. I feel like that was just a mic drop moment right there. Now you know, and now we're done. You just rolled through that like an absolute pro. Ashley,
my 10-minute drill.
I think it was longer than 10 minutes, girl. Odds to win the NBA Finals. You can see it right there. The Thunder are the favorite, the heavy favorite at plus 260, followed by Ashley's New York Knicks at plus 750. You know she loves seeing that. After that, it gets a little fuzzy. The Nuggets, the Rockets, and the Cavs all at plus 850 there.